Premium power! Holy crud, that is really expensive. About $2,500 for the bamboo version and up to $2,900 for the carbon version. That is a lot more expensive than I expected. When they first showed the teaser video for the Hadean, I thought it was going to be a replacement for the GTR, but it turns out they're going to continue selling the GTR, and the Hadean is a higher end model. But wow, that is a lot more expensive than I expected. I thought the Atlas was expensive, but yeah, this is like the cheapest version of the Hadean is more expensive than the four-wheel drive Atlas Carbon. Anyway, let's take a look at their video. I've already watched the video. I'm just gonna give you some of my thoughts. That is a really cool view.
It's not easy trying to add a heap of extra performance into an electric skateboard without turning it into like a massive tank.
So they're trying to keep it relatively the same size as the GTR, which is nice because, you know, some of these larger boards like the Kwan, it's pretty fucking large. And I think not everybody wants a board that big.
So by removing material from underneath the electrics and having a drop-in battery enclosure, we were able to stack in a larger cell configuration without impacting the deck shape.
So this is something that I didn't quite understand because there are other boards that are about the same size that use a 12S4P battery with 21700 cells and they fit just fine. Like, how does using a chassis frame with a drop-in enclosure save space? I don't really understand. If someone can explain it to me, go ahead and leave a comment. But I'm not seeing how this saves any space.
The battery is a 21700 12S 4P configuration, which is approximately 691 watt hours, which is in actual fact 37% larger in size than the existing GTR battery.
So yeah, like I said, there are other boards on the market today that use 12S4P 21700 cells. Wait, 691 WA? I think they misspelled it. Should be WH. There are other boards out there with higher capacity batteries that's also 12S4P 21700, and they're like the same size as this board.
We're using 63 68mm motors on the board, which are 3000 watts each.
So 63 68 motors have been used by Onboard since 2019. The Onboard Carbon AT came out at about the same time as the Evolve GTR. So Onboard uses those motors, Walgo uses those motors, For Real uses those motors, Onsra uses those motors. Now the insides of those motors might be different. I'm not really sure. They probably are, but they should be from the same factory. So most of you probably don't know this, but the small motors on the GTR come from the same factory as the Onboard motors, Walgo motors, For Real motors, Onsra motors. So I'm assuming that these new motors come from the same factory also, which means that if these motors are more powerful, the other boards are probably going to get these same motors very soon also.
It is like really quiet, it's really smooth, and the FOC has allowed us to really harness the intense power that the battery and the motors are pushing out.
Wow, FOC. Just like Hobbywing.
In the industry, we often see people refer to it as sine wave control. So this differs from our previous boards like the GTR, where we use square wave.
Sine wave, wow. Just like pretty much every other motor controller.
And with that, you know, we can create a smoother power delivery and smoother braking.
Like Hobbywing. I feel like he just said a lot of stuff without really telling us anything about that ESC, except that it's small and it fits inside their enclosure. Okay, this water resistance test seems like many brands do this. X-Way has done this, Onsra has done this, and Evolve is doing this. They're pouring water onto the underside of the deck.
Bone dry.
Of course it's dry. You poured water onto the underside. Of course the top side is going to be dry. What would be more interesting is if they poured water onto the top side and see if water seeps into the battery compartment. You know, they just poured water onto the underside, which is like, doesn't tell us anything. Other brands do this also.
Trying to put as much strain and load through the board as possible.
That looks familiar.
Testing on the Hadean boards was relentless.
Matty! Mr. China Board himself. Go, 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 go! You know what would be useful there, right? Four-wheel drive.
One of the ways we're able to achieve the same size deck as the GTR series was by using a forged carbon chassis frame.
Oh, speaking of forged carbon, I actually saw another board using forged carbon in 2019, but they never released it. So if they had released it, that would have been the first electric skateboard using forged carbon. But yeah, it never happened.
To create this really innovative deck shape. So we're able to remove material but still maintain strength.
I still don't see how that saves space. I mean, that's the same thing as making a unibody design, right? I mean, I can think of a benefit of using a chassis frame. I mean, I can think of a couple of benefits. If they ever come out with either a larger battery or a smaller battery, they can keep the same frame and just sell the battery enclosure. Because with a unibody design, you would have to make an entirely new deck. And I guess if you make a whole deck using forged carbon, that's going to be really expensive. So with a chassis frame, they can have just the frame be forged carbon, and it looks like everything else is plastic. So I guess the benefit for them is that they can save some production cost and still say that they're using a forged carbon deck, even though it's mostly plastic. That is a pretty good looking board. Those little slanted indentations on the side kind of reminds me of Backfire. I wonder why they went with gray stripes in the middle. Wouldn't it look better with black? I don't know, whatever. It's still pretty good looking, I guess.
An improvement that we wanted to make with the new Hadean series was a brand new remote.
Of course.
This remote needed to feel awesome in the hand. It needed to have a brand new LCD screen with a heap of new functions and control. And more importantly, it had to be rock solid, tough as nails.
Yes, because in case you didn't know, the remote for the GTR is a piece of shit. Like, it has a reputation for being a piece of shit. If you just drop it once, it's very likely that it's gonna break. If it doesn't break, it's very likely that you have to recalibrate it. Now, with other remotes, I've never heard of anyone having to recalibrate their remote. They do have the feature to recalibrate, but like, I've never had to recalibrate, ever.
It's got a new LCD screen and a new menu display that's been inspired by sort of the automotive industry.
I don't see how that's inspired by the automotive industry, but I think it's really cool that they have a menu system that you can toggle through. I do wish that other remotes had that. In fact, like, if you can configure everything through the remote, which I think later on they'll show an app, so probably not everything can be configured through the remote, but if everything can be configured through the remote, I think that would be really cool. I don't really like connecting the app to the board. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of inconvenient. But if the remote has a large screen like this and there's multiple levels in the menu, kind of like a camera, like cameras have a menu system and there's like different pages and you go into one menu and there's like a sub menu. If the remote can do that, that's really cool. It looks like that's what they have here, I think.
It's got a new brake trigger that triggers the brake lights on the board.
So there's integrated brake lights. So if you brake on the remote, the brake lights light up like a car. I'm hoping that more boards have this in the future.
It also has smart features such as notification for board status and automatic trigger calibration prompts.
Automatic trigger calibration prompts. So it sounds to me like you still have to recalibrate the remote. Again, with other remotes, I've never had to recalibrate ever. I think most people never recalibrate their remotes unless they're using a GTR. With this new remote, I'm curious to see if they still have to be recalibrated all the time.
We're going to do a drop test. It's got to be dropped at 1.2 meters in height on a concrete surface with a plywood top. 26 times, different spots on the product.
26 times. Why 26? That's like a really arbitrary number.
Yeah.
Crunch.
So it worked. Just got to place the glass on it now.
So that's pretty impressive. The new remote is apparently way more durable than the previous remote. So this is probably even more durable than most other remotes out there. I mean, they drove a freaking truck over it. I just think it's kind of unfortunate that they're still using two triggers, one for the accelerator and one for the brake. I guess if you get used to it, it's probably all right. I don't know. For me, like, if you have multiple boards, I would rather they all use the thumb control. That's just my personal preference.
There's a new app that allows you to get in there and dial in your acceleration and brake curves and
like, what the hell is that? Maximum power, maximum acceleration, and then minimum braking. What the
There's a whole heap of extra other stuff in there that just all adds up.
Smart cooling system. So for those of you who don't know, what this does is it takes in regular air and converts that into premium air. Jeff, Nick, Mr. China Board.
That's my ride done. The board turned off at 43.5 kilometers.
43.5 kilometers for a 100 kilogram rider. So that comes out to 15.8 watt hours used per kilometer. For a 100 kilogram rider and using pneumatic tires, that's really efficient. But it says calm commute. It doesn't say like how fast they're going. I'm guessing it's got to be like 20 kilometers per hour.
The total of 58.1 kilometers.
58.1 kilometers for a 60 kilogram rider. That's 11.8, 11.9 watt hours used per kilometer with all-terrain wheels. That's really efficient. But again, I mean, it's possible, but I'm pretty sure they're riding really slow. Like really slow, I mean like maybe 20 kilometers per hour. If you're going at about 30 kilometers per hour, I don't think that seems very likely with all-terrain wheels.
It was around 41.3 kilometers.
Big hills, off-road. There's a lot of variables here, so I appreciate that they show that there are situations that can drain the battery really quickly. Riding on grass, that's an example of something that can like really kill the battery really fast.
68 kilometers.
So I've just got back. I did 68 kilometers all up.
So that's interesting that Jeff and Matty both got 68 kilometers, even though there's a significant weight difference. But that's entirely possible. The farther you ride, the more variables, so the bigger the margin of error.
81.4.
Oh my gosh. Well done. Good effort.
81.4 kilometers. That's a lot in one day. So the farthest I've ever ridden in one day, I think was like 70 kilometers or around there. That was during the road trip with Max. And we were on the Backfire Ranger X1, which had large all-terrain wheels. But here they were using street wheels. So that must have been really tiring. 81 kilometers in a single day on street wheels. If I did that, I'm pretty sure my knees would be hurting. High speed hill climbs, so this should be interesting.
I ended up with 39.9 kilometers.
Elevation gain 960 meters.
Elevation gain 960 meters, so that's about 1 kilometer. And he traveled 48.4 kilometers, so that's like a 2% slope on average.
Those hills were just relentless.
2%. No, I mean, I know they're probably going up and down different slopes, but like it just seems kind of funny. Okay, so the Hadean is noticeably longer than the GTR Bamboo.
What we're going to do, we're going to go head to head. The GTR series versus the Hadean series. 2, 1, go.
Well, I mean, pretty much anything can beat the GTR nowadays.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
That is pretty steep.
Last time we did this hill, it was on street wheels on the GTR board. And we didn't try to do it on AT wheels because we know that it'll never get up in AT mode.
Do you guys hear that?
It'll never get up in AT mode. It'll never get up in AT mode.
Some people didn't believe that the GTR with all-terrain wheels does not perform well uphill, but he basically said it himself.
It'll never get up in AT mode. With the AT setup, I would expect a 40-kilometer range.
So as they showed you earlier, this range is gonna vary a lot depending on the rider's weight and also like what kind of wheels you're using and what kind of terrain you're riding on, the incline and all that stuff. There's a lot of variables. I'm not talking about just Evolve, but like any board that you look at, the range can always vary a lot.
The Hadean series is not here to replace the existing GTR series. It's here to add a whole new level of electric skate performance.
So I'm surprised that they're still going to be selling the GTR. It was basically outspec'd by the competition immediately after it came out in 2019.
More power, it's got more range, there's a lot more refinement to it. This is the Hadean series.
So what have we learned from this video? Basically, the Hadean is much better than the GTR. That's pretty much what we expected. So I was surprised when I found out that they're using a 12S4P with 21700 cells. But that was because I assumed that this board was going to be the GTR's replacement and sell at the GTR's price. But now that I see it's a lot more expensive, I'm not that surprised anymore. The forged carbon frame, it's interesting. Don't really see the benefit. So they say, okay, I mean, it's much stronger. Okay, but like, does the deck need to be stronger? I mean, I guess stronger is a good thing, but like the other thing they said about the deck, the chassis, is that it allows them to fit a larger battery, but like I said, I don't understand that at all, because what difference does using a chassis make versus a unibody design? I literally have another board that's about that size that's using a 12S4P battery with 21700 cells. I mean, it's nice that they're doing something different, but is that part of the reason this board costs so much? So 690 something watt hours. So that's cool. That's pretty up there. Although there are, of course, cheaper boards. There are boards that are half the price that have more battery capacity. So I mean, I'm not trying to shit on Evolve or anything. I mean, maybe a little bit, but no matter how you look at it, this is a really expensive board. When I thought it was going to be the price of the current GTR, I thought about buying one because I thought it would be good for, comparing with other boards that come out, to kind of use it as a benchmark. But man, this is really expensive. So Evolve doesn't ship to China. I know it's kind of funny because they're made in China, but they don't sell in China. So if I were to buy one, I would probably have to buy one in the US and find someone to ship to me via like UPS or something, and then pay a custom duty on it. So I would probably end up paying more than $3,000. I'm not going to spend that much on this board. I'm sorry. Like, if you guys want me to like review this, I'm sorry. I'm not going to spend that much. If I were to spend $3,000 on a board, I think I would rather just build my own board. I live in Shanghai. I have very easy access to DIY parts. If I'm going to spend $3,000 on a board, it just makes a lot of sense to go DIY for me. I'm sure other reviewers will compare this board with like the Atlas and other competitors, so you guys can watch other reviews for that, but I guess I'm not going to do it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this board in the comments. Are you going to buy one? What do you think about the price? What do you think about the features? Let me know. I'm curious to know what you think. Anyway, ciao, Benwala.